Hey, Emily.
Hey, what?
You know, these stools are pretty nice. I don't know where they came from, but I don't think mushrooms are going to like them very much.
Mushrooms? Why not?
You know, I just have a feeling. I really think they prefer toadstools.
Nice.
Oh, hey, we didn't see you back there.
My name's Emily Rosmus. I'm the Education Coordinator.
And my name's Hunter Kauffman. I'm the Nature and Arts Educator for the Ned Smith Center for Nature and Art.
We just got done with a nice long hike, and now we're enjoying a nice cozy fall fire.
And today we're going to be talking about wild fall forageables and how to prepare some of them. Welcome to Nedtalks.
So for the past few weeks, we've been out in the woods looking for different kinds of edible plants and fruits that we could bring back and cook with. So we found some persimmon, pawpaw, autumn olive, shagbark hickory, and what was the last one, Hunter?
Spicebush.
Spicebush, awesome. So we're going to take a look and see how we might be able to prepare those today. So the first thing I mentioned was persimmon. So persimmons are fruits. They are native to Pennsylvania. And this is about the general size for a good sized persimmon. They kind of look like plums, and you'll know they're ripe when you can easily shake the tree and they just fall off. They might be a little softer than you would expect, but they shouldn't be too firm whenever they're ripe. You just twist the top off. You can pull the little bottom nubbin off, and then you can eat them whole. Some people do choose to kind of peel the skin off, but since wild persimmon skin is so fine, really, you can just eat it like this. But if you do choose to cut it open, you can use persimmons for whatever you would use bananas for. So you can bake it in bread, you can make jelly or custard out of it as well. It's a very diverse fruit.
Next up, we found a lot of autumn olive. Now, autumn olive turns out to be an invasive plant, but it is readily found through a lot of Pennsylvania, and it produces a lot of fruit too. It's a medium to large bush with very metallic looking leaves, twigs, and fruits. The fruits taste pretty astringent, pretty sour, but after the first frost, some of the cells in the fruit start to break down and the fruit becomes a lot sweeter. So autumn olive bushes produce berries by the thousands. So one of the easiest ways to collect them is to wait until they're ready to be picked in the early fall, usually after the first frost. And then you can just take a 5-gallon bucket with you and strip the branches off. You can get the berries and the leaves and everything, and then just sort the leaves out later. But once you have the berries, as I said, they're very astringent, pretty sour, so people use them to muddle into cocktails, or my favorite thing to do is to mix them with some other fruit and dry it out in a dehydrator and make fruit leather. And you can roll it up in parchment paper to store it, and it doesn't need refrigerated, and it'll last for a couple weeks, and it's quite delicious as well.
Ooh, that's pretty tasty. The next fruit that we were able to find were pawpaws. So pawpaws are Pennsylvania's largest native fruit, and they're kind of a weird mix between a mango and a banana. They have a really weird squishy texture. And like I said, I think they kind of taste like bananas. Everybody has their own opinion. But rather than single trees, they grow in groves, oftentimes spreading through their root base, and they can get about 30 feet tall with these very, very large leaves. And you can see that it's kind of a very pulpy texture fruit, very similar to a banana's flesh, and it will get even softer as it ripens up. And then same thing, very similar to the persimmon, you can use it to bake with, you can make it into a jelly or a custard. I've known people who brew with it. So again, pawpaws are kind of Pennsylvania's hidden fruit, I guess you'd say.
We also took advantage of the plentiful shagbark hickory on property. Now there are a couple different types of hickory trees that grow in Pennsylvania, but the shagbark hickory is the one that we had harvested some bark from, and we were able to make a nice, delightful syrup out of it. So our shagbark hickories are pretty easily identifiable by all of this loose, scaly, peeling bark along the tree. But you do want to make sure that the tree is a shagbark hickory before you start taking bark off. And what you're going to look for here is these loose pieces. You don't want to rip bark that is still attached to the tree. Instead, you can just kind of snap some of these loose pieces off into manageable sizes. Now you do want to avoid any bark that has a lot of lichen or moss on it. You want to try and pick the cleanest bark you can. That lichen and moss will affect the flavor of the syrup, but if you do happen to pick some pieces that have some lichen on it, you can scrub that off pretty easily when you clean the bark. Now our last fall forageable is spicebush. So there's a lot of things you can do with different parts of a spicebush bush, but we went out and snipped some twigs and made a delightful tea out of it. So we're not going to go completely through how to identify spicebush, but we will mention some of the quick signature things to look for on a spicebush. That would be these obvious, large, round, flowery looking buds. And then when you break a twig and you smell it, it kind of smells kind of sweet, dark, and spicy, very spice heavy. That is kind of what your tea is going to taste like as well. Once you have a bunch of your branches trimmed down, you can also strip the bark as well if you prefer. It doesn't make too much of a difference, but then you want to take those twigs and branches and throw them into a pot of boiling water. As soon as you get that water to a boil and throw the branches in, you want to take that pot of water off the burner though. You don't want to boil the spicebush twigs the whole time. You just want to kind of let it simmer in the hot water. Boiling will make your tea a little more bitter. So after your spicebush twigs have simmered for about 20 to 30 minutes, you can open the lid of your pot, check on it. It should be a kind of dark brownish gray color. And at that point you can strain your liquid, pull the twigs and bark and everything out, and you can add any sweeteners such as honey if you would like to. Serve hot or cold and enjoy.
Now, before you just head out in the forest and start eating things, we do need to talk about safety and the ethics of foraging.
Right, so safety. First of all, you have to be able to 100% identify whatever you are trying to forage and consume. If you are not positive of the identity, it's always better just to leave that piece of forage go. Also, if this is your first time eating anything you foraged, it's better to start with maybe just a tiny piece of whatever you foraged, because even though it might be something like a mushroom that you know is safe and you eat mushrooms all the time in your diet, this particular mushroom might be a little bit different, or your body might not be used to consuming something from the wild. Also, on that same line, the nutritional content of stuff that is foraged out in the wild is a little bit different than of things you would buy in the grocery store. So you want to be mindful of that as well, and you shouldn't be consuming lots and lots of foraged stuff all the time.
It's also important when we talk about ethics to make sure you get permission from the landowner whose land you might be going on to forage, or make sure it's legal in your part of the state or from where you're from to go in things like state parks and stuff. As you can see, foraging can be an exciting and very rewarding experience. And who doesn't love free food that you basically get to go on a scavenger hunt to find?
Yeah, it's a really great opportunity just to get outside and to learn more about the things that are around us.
We're going to go enjoy the fruits of our labors and enjoy some of the things that we collected today.
So until next time, happy foraging.
All right, I'm going to try some of these persimmons.
Yeah, where'd those mushrooms go? Can we throw some of them on?